Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for swinging by. I sure do appreciate it. If this is your first time with the channel, my name is Mark.
Oh, hi Mark.
Welcome to Fit and Fire. Let's get into this video. This time we're going to be looking at the PSA Krink one more time, but we're not looking at the 5.56 version. Rather, we're going to take a look at the 300 Blackout version, and that is what we have right here. This is a interesting little setup. I have a lot of things to say about it, and I'm going to try to keep it as concise as I possibly can, but I do tend to ramble a little bit. Real quick, before we get into the video, I do need to make sure that everybody understands my relationship with PSA, and that is that I'm an affiliate with them. So if I send you guys a link and you use it, I get a small kickback. However, I'm not getting paid to say anything good, bad, or indifferent about this or any of their other products. Nor will I ever. I will never accept a payment from a company to give a positive review. I'm always going to talk about the good things with the bad and let you guys decide whether or not this is right for you. With that being said, this was not sent to me by PSA. This was actually sent to me by a viewer. And I need to say a huge thank you to Sarge. Man, this is really kind of awesome that you took your time, money, and effort to get this sent to me, and I really do appreciate everything that you've done, not only for the channel and this video, but your support as well. That is extremely meaningful, and I had a lot of fun with this, so hopefully that translates in this video. So if you guys could, down in the comment section, give a huge thank you to Sarge for allowing us to take a look at this firearm. With that being said, how many rounds do I have through this? I've got about 200 rounds. It is pretty pricey to run 300 Blackout, which is going to be a talking point that I have in this video. But I also know that Clayco 47 will be doing a review on this that is going to be a higher round count than what I'm capable of doing. So just be on the lookout for that. I'm excited to see what he has to say when it comes to this as well. So let's talk about the setup real quick. Not too much different from the 5.56 versions. There's some small little things we'll get to here in a second, but the 5.56 version is basically going to be the exact same as this. What Sarge has done is he has added a cheese grater up front here on the upper handguard for the gas system. I think that is, I just love the cheese graters. They're really, really cool. This is going to be running the PSA 5.56 AK mags, so no issues there. I've had really good success with these magazines in the PSA Krinks, whether it's this version or the 5.56. He has added a Bakelite grip on here with this little sling bracket that goes underneath the pistol grip, which is something I had never seen before. Kind of cool, but you know, really, I don't really need it. Not me personally, but he's obviously wanted to make sure that he has a sling for this, so that's cool. Using the RS Regulate AK302M on here for the side mount with a Sig Sauer Romeo 5 Elite. It's their like Gen 2 version of the Romeo 5. I'm a huge fan of the Romeo 5. I think it's one of the best kind of budget-friendly red dots on the market. Shake-awake technology, 50,000 hours worth of battery life, and they've made some small minor changes to it, got a different type of reticle. So yeah, it's ran great, and if it's anything like the original, it's going to be a tank. I have one that's over 6 years old now, and I've had zero issues with it. So really super cool. This does come with a SB Tactical triangle folder brace with a JMac Picatinny section on the back. Sarge has added some rope here on the triangle folder for some comfort. A lot of people do that. Most of the times you see it was like 550 cord, but this is actually some nylon rope. Comfortable, I will say. It's very comfortable. Not something I do, but he wanted to do that, and right on. Never going to complain about how other people set up their rifles. They do it for what they like, and that's pretty awesome. So this has been a lot of fun to shoot. This has been extremely reliable, far more than I was expecting. Again, we only have probably between Sarge and myself about 300, maybe just a little over 300 rounds through this. So this is going to be basically a first impressions, not a full review. Unfortunately, I will have to send this back to Sarge as quickly as I can. so that I don't leave him out hanging without his firearm. So I'm not going to be able to put a lot of rounds through this. In addition to that, 300 Blackout is expensive. The cost on a standard like 150 grain 300 Blackout is going to range somewhere around that 75 cents per round mark. I ran about 60 rounds of subsonic through it as well, and it was painful for the wallet, to say the least. So, but I really wanted to take an opportunity to compare this to the 5.56 version, as well as my 300 Blackout AR. I've got an Aero Precision 10.5 inch barrel 300 Blackout that I have kind of as my nightstand gun, you know, for home defense. And I wanted to kind of get an idea of what this sounds like at the shooter's ear, as well as what it sounds like downrange from 25 and 50 yards away. We'll get into that here in just a second. As mentioned, reliability on this has been great. I only had, in the 200 rounds that I put through it, one failure to feed, which came from a Hornady Black round, which is surprising because I was using some remanufactured 150 grain 300 Blackout from Angel Fire, and my 300 Blackout AR just does not like that ammunition. It has failures to feed all the time, and it has to do with the fact that the lighter grain bullets, OAL, or overall length, is going to be a little bit shorter than the subsonics. The subsonics are going to have a heavier grain weight on the bullet, which makes it longer, and so on and so forth. So that was something that I didn't take in consideration when building a 300 Blackout. But to be frankly honest with you, I'm going to only run subsonics through my AR version, because it's for home defense. With that being said, this thing chewed up everything with the exception of that one round. Is there going to be more if I ran more ammunition through it? Yeah, probably. But for the most part, I was surprised at how well it ran. So there is that. Okay, so let's talk about the major differences between this and the 5.56 version. Everything back here is going to be pretty much the same. Obviously, the barrel is going to be different because it's going to be a 30 cal barrel instead of 5.56. But in order for this to run reliably, something that PSA obviously took some time to think through, is they had to change the gas system to ensure that 300 Blackout would run as it's expected to for this type of firearm. We all know that 300 Blackout requires a pistol length gas system, and the way that a Krink is normally set up is the gas system is right here. So you're going to have a very short dwell time between the gas port and the muzzle of the gun. So that usually causes some issues with like 5.56, short dwell times, not really great for 5.56. But with 300 Blackout, they changed the gas port from being right here at the front sight post gas block combo back here to an added gas block, gas port situation. And then they run a tube from that gas block to the front sight post to cycle the action on this. So you still have the same carrier length as you would with the 5.56 version. Everything as far as the internals are about the same, but the exception being this gas system, which I thought was very smartly done. Now, this is going to be a failure point for individuals who are wanting to run high round counts, especially if you were to do a post sample and make it full auto. That gas tube setup right there is going to be probably the first place that we have a failure, in my opinion. I do not have the ability to do that, so I'll let people like Clayco and those type of people figure that out. So needless to say, that has been the only major change that I've seen with the 300 Blackout version. The Resilient Putnik is the suppressor that I have been using on this. Obviously, the Putnik is mine, and just went ahead and threw it on here. This is a 30 cal multi-cal can. I've ran probably about 1,000 rounds through it between the 300 Blackout PSA Krink, the 5.56 Krink as well, and then also the Riley Defense 7.62 by 39 version of the Krink as well. So I think that this can does very good, not only for the vibe, just giving that really cool Russian look, but also the fact that this is going to be a low back pressure can. It's got ports up front for flash suppression, and in addition to that, it's pretty heavy as well. It's heavier than most of my other cans, which also then mitigates recoil a lot better than just a standard brake or the booster that is on the end of this, or whatever you choose to put on here. This suppressor is really going to dampen down not only that recoil, but that muzzle rise as well. So that's something I really, really did like. So let's get into the shooting experience and talk about the suppression of this. I'm going to show a video here that shows me shooting this at 25 yards. I'm going to give you what it sounds like here in just a second, but I'm also going to include the velocity for the different types of bullets. So let's take a look at the 25 yard and 50 yard sound suppression for this particular setup with the different bullets. So there you have it. Pretty much what you would expect for an 8.4 inch barrel 300 Blackout firearm. This is going to have velocities that are obviously going to be a lot slower than what you would expect from other types of firearms. In comparison to that, let's hear what the 5.56 version sounds like. So there you have that. And then finally, I wanted to have you guys take a look at what my 10.5 inch 300 Blackout AR sounds like at 25 and 50 yards using the same type of ammunition as the PSA Krink. Okay, so there you go. There is some data for you guys to see. Obviously, I do understand that it's probably going to be a little flawed, and I understand that. The reason why is obviously, number one, we're not using the same can on all the different firearms. Obviously, the Resilient Putnik stayed on this, and then I used my Dead Air Sandman S for the 5.56 and the 300 Blackout AR. The reason for that is because both of those have chemo adapters. I can easily switch those back and forth without having to worry about different types of adapters for the Putnik. So that is a little bit flawed, but I honestly feel that it's not going to make that much of a difference between the different platforms. It's not going to mitigate the sound any more or less by using the Putnik versus the Sandman S on the different types of firearms. That's number one. Number two is obviously the 300 Blackout AR is going to have higher velocities than that of the PSA Krink because it's a 10.5 inch barrel, adding 2 inches to the barrel length between this and the 300 Blackout AR. So I totally understand that aspect of it too. Plus, you're going to have a little bit more of sound mitigation as well. So there's some differences, which may be something that you might want to consider when building out an AR in 300 Blackout or deciding if you want to purchase something like this. If you're okay with how it sounds with the 8.4 inch barrel on this, then I'd say go ahead and do it. If you need higher velocities, if you need better sound suppression, if you need more familiar manual of arms, then I would say run the AR. But that's up for you guys to decide on that. And that's something that I will say that this does fairly well in the fact that the 8.4 inch barrel is pretty much optimized for 300 Blackout. And that's one of the main reasons why when PSA introduced this at SHOT Show a couple of years ago, the very first thing that people started asking when they announced that it was going to be chambered in 5.56, when 300 Blackout. That was like the #1 comment that I saw in my videos from SHOT Show a few years ago. So we now have it, and I would say that it is a pretty cool idea. Not only bringing it into the 21st century, but also giving it the ability to run American calibers like 5.56, 300 Blackout, which has more availability, and price point's going to be a little bit better as well. So there is kind of a quick down and dirty run through of everything going on with this. And like I said, this was actually pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about some of the downsides to this particular firearm. Number one is this is not standardized in the United States. The AK, regardless of which one you're looking at, if it's a M90, if it's a M70, if it's a PSA AK 47 GF3, regardless, there's no real standardization. So you might buy one 5.56 version of this firearm and compare it to something else, and the mags just won't fit. That's one of the reasons why people might be interested in just sticking with an AR platform instead of going into this, especially if they're going to use it for home defense or land defense or whatever the case, hunting, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a better availability for magazine and aftermarket support than you would with something like this. There's tons of aftermarket support for the AK, but again, it's not all standardized. You know, specs are different for different countries and so on and so forth. So there's a wide variety of things that could go wrong with something like this. In addition to that, PSA has some a bit of a checkered past when it comes to their quality control of their AKs, especially with like the 5.56 versions. Now, I've ran over 2,000 rounds through the 5.56 PSA Krink, and it's held up. I still need to run a no-go gauge through it to verify the headspace, but as it stands right now, it has ran just fine, no problems, and it has some wear on the bolt and the carrier tail for sure, but I don't see any major wear or issues with the trunnion. So again, more to follow on that, especially with the no-go gauge, but I would expect it to not be any different with this. In fact, there might be some more issues that we see on down the road when we get higher round counts through this, because of the different gas system that they're using for 300 Blackout. Now, is it going to be much of a difference to make a difference? I don't know, but again, PSA has some kind of spotty QA/QC and manufacturing issues when it comes to their 5.56 AKs, and that's essentially what this is. It's a 5.56 AK rechambered in 300 Blackout, different gas system, so the bolt in the carrier is exactly the same. So obviously more time with this would be needed to give a full review on it, but I will say that this was something that was a lot of fun to shoot. Now, what did it sound like in comparison to a 10.5 inch 300 Blackout AR? This was actually a little bit more snappy at the ear with subsonics because of the action.
Without ears, going to start off with 150 grain, move on to Hornady 208 grain black, and then some Remington UMC 220 grain. Just shooting right over my targets into the berm. Pretty loud. And that is my first failure to feed. And now the 220 grain.
In my opinion, using the two different types of subsonic ammunition, this was a little bit louder at the ear than my 300 Blackout AR. So take that into consideration, but it was still hearing safe. I didn't wince every time I pulled the trigger. It was just fine, but that is something that, in my opinion, was a little bit louder at the ear with this compared to my AR. So take that as anecdotal at best. Let you guys decide if you get an opportunity to shoot one of these suppressed. So there is kind of a down and dirty overview of everything going on with this, with the limited number of rounds that I've put through it. It's been a lot of fun, and I really do appreciate Sarge, again, taking the time, money, and effort to get this sent to me. I'll have this sent back to him. I was hoping to run this in my local 2-gun match, but unfortunately that's not until next week as I'm recording this, and I really need to use that time to set up and make sure I'm good to go for Kalash Bash, because I have a couple different rifles that I'm going to be testing to see which one I want to run for that competition, providing that I get my optics rail in the mail in time for one of the other setups. So there you have it. The PSA Krink in 300 Blackout. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Is it right for you? I don't know. That's going to be something for you to decide. And obviously there's some concerns when it comes to PSA and their build quality and stuff like that people just have a hard time getting over. I personally have never run into any major issues with any PSA product that I've ever bought. So take that for what you will. I'm not a simp for PSA. I will call them out each and every time that I see an issue, but in my experience, I've had good luck. So there is that. With all that being said, I really do appreciate you guys swinging by and checking things out. If you haven't already listened to the Live, Laugh, Larp podcast, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. If you guys are interested in saving some money on some Vertex, I've got discount codes for that as well. Tons of information in the pinned comment, so swing on by that and check it out. And we will catch you guys next time. As always, freedom through strength. Here comes a high five. Catch you guys later. Bye, y'all.